Hello. It's working. Excellent. I don't know which way round to hold these. We'll go with that way round. That's better. You look dashing, Pauline. Okay, super. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll say us, me. Thank you, firstly, for making it through to nearly 3 o'clock on day 2. For those of you that have been here for 2 days, it is commendable. Thank you very much indeed. I want to try and make this a really practical and somewhat interactive session, but the idea of today is to really take us on a bit of a journey about how you can use AI to really unlock and leverage incredible capabilities in your business. But to do so, you need to leverage skills to be able to do that with real impact. So we're going to kind of really look at the practical application of that and how we take you on a journey, reflecting on what the way things are and the way things could be. If you can't hear me, please shout, wave, scream, etc., and I will shout a little bit louder for you. But to get things started, who the heck am I? So, this is me. Rather than a picture, you can see my face. I am a middle-aged man in Lycra who upsets people on my bicycle on a Sunday morning. I am a cool dad on my bike. But actually, why do I have any credibility to talk to you today about this application? I'm actually very proud of the fact that some nearly 16 years ago, I worked as part of the Watson team over at IBM, introducing AI into the HR function, thinking about how we can give people better employee experiences by leveraging AI to make better decisions about how we learn, where we go, what we do, and the decisions we make. Now, equally, I'm now proud to be true innovators at How Now as we bring the world to life using AI to help you make smarter decisions around your learning strategy, but actually provide fundamentally better, more consumer-grade experiences for our learners on a day-to-day basis. But, of course, who are How Now? Hopefully, by now, most of you know we have this colossal lovely stand in the middle of the event hall here. But I'd love you to think of How Now in a very simple way. We have a really simple mission. We want to be the only learning platform that connects learning to the skills individuals need. Those are the things which are the tangible things that are going to help people grow on a personal level. However, we want to make sure that we also give people a guidance on the skills they need through the lens of what your organization also needs to continue to sustainably grow and be successful over time. So the intention of this presentation is to take on a little bit of a journey of how we bring that to life and how we're going to think about leveraging skills to do so and how AI is that catalyst to unlock it. But first of all, let's start with a really simple question. So who in the audience today is using AI on a personal level to impact your personal life? Who's using AI day to day? Now, this is really exciting because I actually did a similar themed presentation in October last year where I'd say maybe only 10% of the audience were really dabbling in how we can use AI. But let's continue that question further. How many of you are using AI today to have a greater impact on the organizations and the work that your organizations deliver today? Brilliant. True story, the last time I did this, 2 people put their hand up. So we've already got 100% growth and improvement over this time in October last year. That is a tremendous level of excitement around innovation in the world that we operate. So we're going to start and we're going to go on a bit of a journey. I want you to imagine going on a walk through a beautiful park. And yes, shamelessly, I used AI to create a picture of a park. You want an interesting insight into innovation? In October last year, this is what I described to AI as a walk in the park. Pouring with rain, stressed, 2 kids. Yes, that was me. I asked AI to do the same thing last week, and that's what it created. Do you not think that level of innovation there is absolutely staggering? In less than 6 months, we went from this slightly tenuous image to something that looks true picture quality. Innovation is unbelievable. We cannot afford not to embrace it. But let's go back to my park story. So we're going through a walk in a beautiful park. In the distance, we can see a hill. That is the highest hill within my sight range, or my range of sight even. I climb to the top of that hill. I feel a sense of accomplishment. I've reached, in that case, in mathematical terms, what is called the local maximum within my domain. But when I actually reach the top of that hill, I look across the way, and there's an even bigger hill ahead of me. That is my global maximum. Now, what I want to try and explore today is how do we take L&D from using AI at a local maximum level to achieving global maximum. So how are we going to do that? So without a shadow of a doubt, the current use of AI in L&D I'm pretty confident in telling you it's at the local maximum. What does that actually mean? Let's explore that a little bit further. So, ironically, when you step back and look at the way we apply AI generally day to day at the moment, we're using this to create content. More and more content, faster and faster. Now, the scary thing is actually, last year we spent 45 billion on incredible volumes of content. This is very simply telling us a very simple problem. We didn't have a content problem already, yet ironically, what are we doing? We're creating even more content to go on top of the content we already had. So what does that mean? That means we're creating even more content, but unfortunately, we're creating content without context. We are creating content that solves a fundamental quick fix of we are providing more resources to our employees. But actually, what are we doing? We're creating content that, frustratingly, doesn't align with business priorities. But equally, it also doesn't really align with employee priorities because employees are just seeing lots of content. Organizations are seeing lots of spend, but we're not seeing a connection with the business. And what does that fundamentally create? It creates a gap between the experience that we want to provide and the value that we need to deliver. In simple terms, the engagement gap. So, AI content is here to stay, but we need to proceed with absolute caution. Because if we think about that equation, lots and lots of content without lots of context, what does that create? That creates distinctly large amount of disengagement with people that just see noise but don't see relevance, they don't see impact to me. But actually we also see an colossal amount of waste, money spent, time invested, but without the ability to prove impact. Now, of course, the second scenario, we can create lots of content in the first place. The second application of AI in the L&D space is around automation. Now, interestingly, the Deloitte study last year showed a really fascinating insight here that AI for automation, when it's applied, as you can see here, so companies using AI for automation report over 50% lower ROI compared to those using it for strategic benefits. We need to make intelligent investments. So does automation equal impact if creating content is not solving that problem? So organizations investing in AI for innovation rather than merely cost cutting are 6 times more likely to see financial gains. It's starting to help you frame that picture of how we need to be investing in the application of AI. And it's critically been validated time and time again. Just creating things at volume doesn't solve a problem. But actually, equally, just automating things to do things faster doesn't actually solve a problem either. So what's the risk of automation? We have the same impact. Of course, absolutely. We're doing it really, really fast, but the perception, the end result is exactly the same. So the opportunities for AI you can see in this tool today are incredible within L&D. Since we talked about these topics last year, it's gone from actually how can we just create content faster through to how can we create agents that will guide us and coach us. The opportunities are phenomenal, but we're still fundamentally stuck at that local maximum because we don't have the context to be able to unleash AI in a proper use case. So we are using AI to be hyper efficient. But are we using AI to be hyper-effective? Absolutely not. Now, critically, as you probably picked up with the title of this presentation, this is where skills really comes to light. This is how we can unlock the potential. So, what's the risk if we don't do something? If we continue on this current path. So, efficiency without effectiveness is overwhelmed by the very problems AI was supposed to solve. So, how can we actually go on a journey now of unlocking that? Because efficiency without effectiveness means that L&D remains seen as a cost center. We're not connecting L&D to impact and value within our organizations. And what we need to fundamentally solve before we continue to innovate and introduce all manner of different capabilities is how we connect our L&D investments to the things which are going to have that disproportionate impact on our organizations. Now, it's an interesting stat, this one, but I love it. Nobody, as you can see there, gets to keep their job for missing targets faster. And that's where we need to think carefully about how we leverage AI from an automation standpoint and use it in the appropriate ways to deliver business impact. The critical component we're missing here throughout is impact itself. So how do we reach that? We need to be able to prove with every investment we make in L&D is how that is connected to delivering business value. Now, arguably, if you speak to a CEO and you're talking to a CEO around L&D initiatives, potentially lining up your next ask for a budget or investment, and your grounds for that is actually we want to spend and prove more time learning or the number of courses that were completed, that is not an executive level conversation which is going to unlock investment. However, if we can find the connective tissue that actually helps correlate the impact of learning on organizational success and profit, that is going to pique the interest of our CEO. And the connective tissue there is very much skills. If you talk to a CEO about how we're creating and generating the skills to build a sustainable business, to address the skills gap which is preventing us from being competitive or maintaining competitive advantage, that equals investment. Just time spent learning does not. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to connect those two things? And this is where skills becomes invaluable. There's a plethora of research out there. You can read all manner of different things where people are talking about skills being the DNA that organizations need, and we all are waxing lyrical about the impact that skills can have. But why don't you believe the research from World Economic Forum and IBM and Deloitte rather than just listening to me? So 74% of CEOs are concerned about the availability of key skills. It's an executive level challenge. It is representing how we build a sustainable, high-performing organization for the future. Skills is the DNA that we have to ensure we are developing. Think about this. 2 years ago, no one had AI literacy as a skill they were even thinking about. Today, it would be unheard of not to factor that in as a critical skill for long-term success of your business. So it's absolutely essential that we're showing how we as an L&D capability contribute to that organizational capability. 58% of employees believe that the skills their job requires will change significantly in 5 years' time. We are not only talking to a CEO now, we're talking to employees that care about the longevity and sustainability of their careers. How do they remain competitive in what is an incredible talent market? And 94% of people would stay longer if their company invested in their skills development. The critical thing here is this is where we're elevating the L&D conversation from one of completion rates, one of compliance, to where we can prove business impact. We can talk to a CEO. We can talk to employees about how they want to sustain and grow their careers and be successful. But we can also demonstrate immediate ROI by retaining our top talent as long as we're giving them the opportunities to grow and develop. Well-proven research. I'd encourage you to have a good read. We can share it all on our stand over at J35, which is the colossal coral red pink stand over there. So, the challenge. Identifying skills gaps. Challenge number one. Then it's closing them with relevant personalized learning experiences directly in the flow of work. How do your organizations provide that? It's incredible the amount of innovation in this room today, from, as I say, from coaches through to learning platforms to content assessment, you name it. All the opportunities are out there. However, the fundamental we have to do is make sure that it's actually aligned to relevant learning that people feel engaged with, people recognize the value of and are compelled to learn and come back to learn more of. So my mission in the next 15 minutes is to actually break down how the heck are we going to do that and why are skills the critical component to unlock that. So let's start with question number one. How do we answer the question within our organization? What skills do we need? Now, what I've tried to do here is bring in my experience over the last 15 years or so and then compare that to the current state. So first thing we need to do is understand the skills that are required for our strategy as an organization. Wind the clock back 5 years, how did we do this? Now, I actually, candidly, used to sell competency frameworks 15 years ago. So this is true. We used to sell big, colossal, massive spreadsheets full of very static, very rigid competency and skill frameworks. What does AI allow us to do now with skills? It allows us to create a dynamic skills language, an incredible opportunity to not just understand the organization you are or the industry you represent, but using AI, we can understand how people describe skill. Are those skills statistical, analytical, financial? We can build a unique appreciation in real time to understand specifically what are the skills that we should be using and the language we should be talking within our organizations. We then need to build our skills framework. Now, that could be a manual process that takes months, if not years, and in certain examples, I've seen millions of pounds with huge consulting companies building out your bespoke frameworks. The traditional approach, it's well proven, but it's extremely slow, and it's not actually something that's affordable for the majority of organizations. AI unlocks an incredible opportunity here. We can combine real-world data from sources like the World Economic Forum. We can bring in and understand the nuances of different job markets, live labor data, to look at not just current skill, but actually the organizational context of your business and what are the emerging skills that you should be factoring in. So we go from being something static, rigid, and frankly outdated to something much more dynamic, fast thinking and agile, thinking about current and future skill, not just what's happening in this moment of time. And future skills. If we want to keep future skills on our radar, historically this has been something that's relied on enormous amounts of investment, huge amounts of research, and ongoing maintenance. AI unlocks an incredible potential here. It unlocks an incredible resource in the World Wide Web in terms of data that constantly evolves that we can leverage to make sure that you are always ensuring you're embedding strategic competitive advantage in the way that you focus and guide your people and your organizations. So question one, how do we understand the skills we need for our strategy? These are all incredibly aligned to what an individual requires, but actually, and selfishly as people trying to drive organizational sustainability, they're equally as aligned to how we remain competitive and successful as organizations. Question two. So what skills do we actually have in the organization? So we need to do a number of things. We, of course, need to track those skills and prove those skills over time. We need to assess the efficacy of those skills. A static test is not an assessment of skill. I could be the world's best assessment taker. I could nail an online communication course and then crumble when I try and do a presentation. We have to ensure that we are assessing skill in a demonstrable, proven way. And then we need to measure that skill over time. We need to prove skills growth. Skills growth is how we can start to think about future sustainability of our people, their careers, and our organizations. So let's go through the 3 steps. The first one, skills identification. What was the old way? I had to do a personal report. I had to fill in an enormous assessment. It was a very painful, slow, arduous process. But actually with AI now, not only can we, as you'll see in a second, leverage the opinion and the wisdom of others, actually we can infer skill. We can look at the way that people describe their role, the way that people describe an opportunity or the activities they're completing at work to infer the level of skill that they should be demonstrating. It gives us a benchmark. Secondly, we need to assess it. Absolutely. There are those huge, colossal, I'm sure you've done all manner of different assessments of demonstrable skill over time. It's something that we used to do day in, day out back in my IBM days. Now we use the wisdom of the crowd. We don't just want to measure an assessment in a point of time. We need to create a 360 perspective, something that's been really fed and embedded into the world we operate in through performance management. What does that mean? It means that when I first join an organization, I should understand what's expected of me, what are those skills and what are those proficiency levels that I should be aspiring to. But I should also then be asked to provide my own opinion. How do I feel that I perform against these skills? But then I should then be able to ask my manager, my peers, to provide true, constructive 360 feedback on how do I actually demonstrate this day to day. Only through that 360 demonstrable skill feedback capability can we actually start to understand truly what skills I really have at that moment in time. And then we need to look at gap analysis. Historically, this will be at the end of a performance cycle. When we look at our performance versus potential in our 9-box grids, we'd be looking at where do we have those skill gaps. We'd be reacting to data which has been compiled over the last 12 months, rather than the current point in time of the skills we really need now to maintain competitive advantage. And it certainly lacked anything to do with emerging skills that we need to be thinking about to remain competitive. I mean, you think about those examples like Blockbuster and Kodak. I bet they were doing performance reviews at a point in time where they thought they were smashing it, but actually little did they know that Netflix was about to pop up around the corner and wipe out Blockbuster overnight, because they weren't thinking ahead emergingly in terms of what's emerging. They were simply reflecting on what they were already doing at that point in time. Yeah. So actually, what can we do with technology today? We can actually unlock individual skills gaps. We can ensure that we are then prescribing the right information, specifically for that individual, and again, aligned to individual and organizational growth. So firstly, we've understood, right, what skills should we have in the organization? Now we are assessing what skills we do have within our organization. Now that gives us two wonderful benchmarks, but what we have now is a massive void in the middle, is how the heck do we fill the skills gap? So how do we do it? We need to connect relevant learning to those skills gaps. This is an interesting one because we've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 2 days, and this still seems to be something that's eluding a lot of organizations. So how could we go about it? What's the art of the possible today? Step one, historically, what's the old world look like? It's been lots and lots of content, from content libraries to online sources. You can provide lots of information to people, but unless it's contextualized, it's not going to resonate. We're not going to see value from it. This is an age-old challenge, bloated content libraries being the solution to that negative score on your engagement survey around learning and growth opportunity. That is not a solution. So, what does the new world look like? We want to be able to connect and unlock all of the different sources of knowledge you have across an organization. But what does AI specifically unlock when it comes to skills? It's the ability to map all of your content at not just a skill level, but a skill and proficiency level right across your ecosystem. Why does that matter? If you all logged into any number of streaming services that you use, let's say you're listening to Spotify in the car, I mean, I do with my kids all the time, and the next song that comes on is, I don't know, a heavy rock metal band when I've just been subjected to Taylor Swift. Everyone thinks, well, it doesn't understand me, it doesn't understand the music I like, it doesn't actually understand what I learn or what I enjoy. So this is the same experience. If our platforms, our technologies are providing growth opportunities to people which are so far removed and so far in terms of proximity to what actually is relevant to me, I do not feel compelled to continue. If your Netflix accounts were recommending films and programs that meant nothing to you or did not have any alignment to what interests you, you wouldn't feel compelled to go back and watch again. Learning should be no different. Every opportunity I have to learn should be directly and carefully correlated to the skills that I have and the capability or the proficiency level I have. That relevancy equals value and impact. I continue to learn. I see more investment. I see more value from what I have access to.
Thank you.
Learning needs to be agile. We see lots of talking around adaptive learning, agile learning, active learning. Traditionally, the solution was, here's lots of knowledge, find things to learn. Whereas actually, again, using AI, you can unlock that incredible capability to connect people to meaningful learning that speaks to them, their level, their capability, their proficiency in a particular role. But specifically, it is going to give them ongoing and continuous skills development with an understanding of how my skills are growing over time. And then lastly, targeted upselling. The historical project, and I remember being these as a manager myself, going through huge vetting processes, looking at 9-box grids and looking at the potential of our future leaders and creating and trying to identify ways of addressing skills gaps on the fly, looking at historical data, versus what does today look like? Actually, we should expect the platform to be able to, in real time, create agile, adaptive learning experiences that reflect the skill level I have and the journey that I'm on, constantly appreciating and unlocking the right level of material to keep me engaged. But most importantly, and this is the really exciting bit for me, is that when we then start to look at what does the art of the possible look like today, in the last few days, you've seen the likes of ourselves over at How Now release things like we call an AI coach called Guru. A coach that can help you develop and understand and role play and engage and assess and quiz yourself on critical disciplines, coaching me on how to develop myself. But the problem is, with any of those capabilities, if they all start at ground zero and I log in and the first engagement I have with my coach doesn't reflect my capability, I've lost my value almost immediately. The same thing applies to any AI application in this room today. We need to have a baseline of skill to understand, where do I start my conversation? If we all had the same job in the same team, we all have different skills and we all need to be able to have a conversation, a coaching moment, interact with content specifically aligned to me and what matters, or us as individuals, and it should reflect that skill level that we have and coach and develop us accordingly. So irrespective of whether it's a piece of content or e-learning, whether it's connecting me with an expert that has a level of skill, whether it is a coaching conversation through one of these amazing AI coaches over at How Now, it all needs to start at the baseline of skill that is relevant to me. That is how we would deliver immediate and ongoing impact. If we solve those three problems, what does that mean? It means we create a skill-based ecosystem for learning and development. This goes beyond just assigning learning. It's understanding the needs of the individual and the organization and continuing to grow strategically and develop our careers. It's all delivered seamlessly in the flow of work. We need to respect and reflect the way people learn, delivering some learning in an interactive sense. Some of it could be learning, some of it's in a Teams conversation, meeting people where they are. And it's creating continuous learning. If we create a continuous learning process where people feel it's easy and viable to engage all the time, then this becomes an interactive and ongoing piece where there is real business impact. We're seeing continuous engagement in learning. What does that mean we can solve? That means that we can achieve the highest peak. That means we can get to our global maximum. How do we do that? We have to connect learning with profit, with business performance. But how do we do that? AI is going to unlock the capability of bringing skills to fruition across an organization. It gives us the ability to do it at scale in a way like we've never seen before. If we achieve that, we will reach our highest peak. We will be at that global maximum. Now, if you want to understand how to do that and actually have a sneak peek of what that actually might look like as the art of the possible, I'd love for you to come and find us. We're in the massive big coral pink box over there on J35. Or if you'd like to see the platform live, you can absolutely scan this lovely QR code here and sign up for a little demo to come and see the platform. We would love for you to join us, and I really thank you for your attention and time today. Thank you.